This is Tales from Under the Hood, part number 2. Saw part number 1 yesterday. I'm David Simpson, president and founder of .com Solutions Incorporated. You see my table over there. Come over and talk, show you what I do. And today, once again, we're joined by Derek Wayne, Derek Lee, and FileMaker. And if you guys can just give us a little brief overview of what you do. It doesn't have to be as long as yesterday, but then we'll get started.
Yeah. So for anyone who doesn't know, my name is Derek Huang, software engineer at Claris, mostly working on admin console, admin API, a little bit more on authentication at this point, and also standby server and AI stuff.
Yeah, my name is Derek. I'm also a software engineer on the FileMaker platforms. Most recently, Standby and AI work, script steps, Let's Encrypt. I've talked to most of you guys. Thank you for talking to me if you talk to me. If not, please talk to me. I guess that's about it. And Docker.
I'm FileMaker. I think my title now is Draco Software Architect. I can't really say I'm the Claris software architect because I'm ignoring all the AI stuff. So I can't, I can't cover everything that's happening at Claris now. But and then if they're not doing it, I'm probably doing it. So.
Clay, which one of the Dereks do you report to?
The
other Derek is AI.
No, Lucy Chen is. I've been reporting to her for years and stuff like that. She's dragging me to Beijing in October, so I can talk to all our developers over there. So like a lot of the OData and XML, well, not the OData, the XML stuff is being done over there a lot. And, I talk to them quite regularly on WebEx, but it'll be nice to finally meet the team in person.
So is this a public event? Or is this
No, this is a private. Yeah, it's a.
Oh.
No, it's not.
You're not invited.
I don't think we've ever considered. Yeah. I've gone to the Japanese developer conference. That's pretty fun. If you guys ever want to go there, that's a pretty big event too. I have no skills at all at Japanese. So.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to get us started with a question today, which I've already briefed the guys on. And my question is basically related to using FileMaker server in Docker. And so I'm just going to kind of set this up and let you know that I really like using the Docker desktop, and I will set up containers for different databases that I work with. MariaDB, that Azure SQL, that's basically, a version of SQL Server that you can run on Apple Silicon. And if you just click the little blue, triangle, you can have your container up and running in seconds. And I really like that because I'm running that here on a laptop. I don't have to dedicate an entire virtual machine to it, and it just starts up in like a second or two. And so I'm thinking, wow, wouldn't it be cool if we could, run FileMaker server in, the Docker app the way you see that I did it with those other, SQL databases. So what I did is I went and I did a search on Docker Hub for FileMaker. And you see I found some copies of FileMaker server. But you know what? I'm not going to trust those because none of those came from Claris. And I mean, I don't know if there could be a virus in there. I mean, I hope not. But, so this was starting my investigation of, okay, well, how do I get, FileMaker server, for Docker? So what you do is you go to your Claris account, and you see on the right-hand side, we got Ubuntu 24, ARM, or AMD, etc. This is where you end up, getting the software. And if I download that file, and I'm zooming in here so that you can see it more easily. Inside that folder, you obviously see the FileMaker server, the Debian package, but in there you have a Docker folder. You've got a Docker file. You got a FMS Docker installer file, etc., README file, and so I'm thinking, wow, can the Docker file be run within the Docker desktop? And so that's where the discussion starts, and Derek created this feature, so I'm going to let him take it away.
Yeah, I thought I was going to be off the hook today too, to be honest. I think there was some effort before I actually helped create the scripts for Docker. For some background, I'm a little curious. How many of you guys have tried Docker? Raise your hand. Okay, if you can keep your hand up if you're on Ubuntu, or raise it up again if you're on Ubuntu and you use Docker.
I use Docker, but not on Ubuntu.
Perfect. Okay. So I'll give you guys a little background to that. So on Docker, we support a lot of features. So for Ubuntu specifically, we support 2 network types, MacFlan and the Bridge network. On Mac OS and on Windows, Docker actually runs a virtualization. That technology is a little different than on Ubuntu because on Ubuntu, containers can run directly through the kernel. It's a lot more lightweight. If you run it on Mac OS or Windows, you can think of it more of like running a virtual machine. There we go. Thank you. Like Parallels. So it has a lot more overhead, which is why we kind of looked at Ubuntu and targeted that first, especially with the MacFlan software. The network driver, you can actually create multiple instances of FileMaker server and run all that on the same machine on Ubuntu. That technology is not available on Mac OS. The only thing that's available there is Bridge. And the additional overhead cost kind of raises the question of why you would run it on Docker versus a virtual machine. So we don't have a Docker Hub image simply because of the third parties we use. We don't. That's kind of a gray area, I think, on Docker. So we've just provided the scripts, provided the options, provided some extra features, which differentiates that than running the official images that are published on there.
So basically, I wouldn't be able to run this Docker file using Docker Desktop on macOS because of these networking limitations. Is that right?
Well, you can take the Docker file and you can actually use it on the other platforms. And if you want to, we encourage it. I mean, FileMaker is a community where if there is no direct solution, you find a workaround, right? And Docker is one of those ways where we're not gating or trying to prevent users from using it on different platforms. It's possible, but you would have to get really familiar with the CLI.
Okay. So anyhow, my request on this is, I don't need to run multiple copies of FileMaker server. It's like if I wanted to do something with OData, how would I do that today? I would have to set up an entire Parallels virtual machine. I'd have to install FileMaker server and then do that. It's like, wow, I really prefer to just, start up a Docker image. And I was hoping, and I guess this is like a feature request, could you make this just automatic so that I could run it on Mac OS, using the Docker desktop, just with the caveats that I'm not going to be able to run FileMaker server and the standby server and all that due to the networking limitations. It's wonderful. It would be fine to have, those caveats in the README or, whatever the case might be. So anyhow, that was just, my request is I just want to get it up and running, start it up in a couple of seconds, be able to send, OData to and from it, etc. So that's why I wanted to start this off as being a question, because, it's a question for me. I don't think anybody's been talking about FileMaker Server in Docker, and I thought, wow, this would be a great under the hood question. So I'm going to, so that really covers the starter question.
Thank you.
And I'm going to walk around with the microphone and let you folks ask your questions.
I was wondering, is FileMaker Server Docker container, is it Swarm compatible, like Docker Swarm compatible?
We haven't done any testing with Docker Swarm, to be honest.
What is that?
Docker Swarm is a Kubernetes similar adjacent feature where you can run multiple Docker containers and have it spawn new Docker containers based off of previously created images. So it's kind of a high availability feature, I think is the right term.
Yeah, high availability is typically what it's used for. And then, is it all one monolithic Docker container, or is it, okay, so is there plans to break it out into multiple different Docker containers at all?
That's something we can definitely look at. But for the Docker support, we're actually kind of looking on enhancing a lot of it just due to the standby server implementation on Ubuntu. Just because if you think on Ubuntu and you have two Docker containers, if one goes down, having that swap over becomes very easy. Yeah, we'll take it. We'll keep it in mind.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Next question.
I'm curious if there's a way, I don't know if this is a data API, an admin API, or a calculation function question, but I would like to know the number of processing cores on the FileMaker server. So I can, like, if I want to spawn multiple scripts with callbacks, or if I want to do multiple data API transactions and multiple OData transactions, it would generally be best, if my machine has 16 processing cores, I can start a lot more at the same time without threading contention than if there's two. But I don't think there is any current way that I know of without actually just going onto the box and looking to see how many processing cores it has.
So on the MN console dashboard, we do show some machine details. I don't think we expose that through admin API, though that's certainly an option we can look into. I think there should be nothing stopping us from reading machine details of that the actual physical hardware the FileMaker server is installed on, and either displaying it on admin console or presenting it as like a server info part of the admin API. I think that's something we can definitely look at.
Next question.
A question about admin console authentication. So traditional Active Directory is supported for group authentication to the admin console, but there's no support for like the new Microsoft authentication or other modern types of authentication into the admin console. Is that something that there's a technical reason not to do that, or is it being considered?
I think, so as far as external authentication is being looked at, there are enhancements we are looking into making for specifically the new like Microsoft authentication stuff. Not to my knowledge, but I mean, we can definitely file and prioritize as necessary. Yeah.
Next question. Oh, okay, let me.
Jesse, you have a whole other talk in an hour to ask this stuff.
With the SSL, the Let's Encrypt, do you have any plans on making it so a server restart is not required, that it can be done in some other method?
Yeah, we know that that is a significant pain point for developers. I see a lot of you guys smiling because I think I've talked to you guys about it. Yeah, we'll look into it.
It'll be coming soon. Yeah, okay, yeah, it'll be coming soon. I can get away with saying stuff like that, you know.
Let's Encrypt is going to 45 days now, so.
And we're also looking at the other SSL and making it, now that there's like some standards coming out into the industry for doing updates of certificates, you know, programmatically. So you'll see the restarting without having without having to reboot everything when you put a new certificate in it. But we are definitely working on supporting these new standards that are coming out, so you can do the same type of operations with other certificate providers other than just Let's Encrypt.
Oh, nice.
But I can't even make a guess of which version that'll come out. So, but we are working on it.
Awesome. Does anyone else have questions?
Oh, okay.
Actually, this question is from Nova.
Okay.
Literally, I asked her because she deals with the XML forming and stuff like that. So FileMaker's XML exposes most of the solution structure, but some runtime behaviors such as script block pairing, relationship binding, layout object state, and file identity doesn't appear to be round trip completely. What hidden metadata still lives only in the FMP12 file, and is Claris working towards fully supported, non-mutating XML format that developers and AI tools can safely version, modify, and rebuild?
Yeah, no, there's a lot of work going on that. I mean, I know, something I never realized is that, we spit out the CSS for certain things from layouts in the XML. And inside there it has like references to images, but they're stored, the binary representation and not the actual representation it should have for pointing to the library catalog. So we were finding that, if you were round tripping stuff like that, you were starting to get duplicate entries coming in because it was being referenced two different ways. So no, there's a team working on that, going through and getting the resolution of the XML complete for everything. I mean, we've been adding in like window position so that the metadata section is getting bigger for things that, I don't know whether that was really important when you reconstruct a file that you would open up in the same exact location on the window that it did before on the screen before. But they are working on that. I'm trying to think of the other things that you mentioned. There was the file references stuff. There was issues that have been fixed.
I think the pairing of if and if that was a problem when we were doing.
Oh, the pairing,
Yeah.
the indexs and ifs. I don't remember seeing that one come by recently, but I know there's a backlog of these different issues. We're getting these larger databases that we go through and basically just turn them into XML and try to return run it back through again. So we're finding that stuff, and that's where we noticed to get the CSS with the images, and so you have to put like a background image in a theme part for some other object or something. It's some of the stuff that isn't well, we finally realized that the CSS generation was done completely differently from how the XML logic was. So we tried to unify it better, but then we just kind of had to go around and hack it and make it duplicate code in both cases right now because it's too hard to merge the two of those. But no, it is being actively worked on that's the big thing, is that we want to eventually be able to take any file and round trip it.
Are OData results streaming or are they buffered in memory? So like if you were to say with OData, like get me every record from this million record table, would it run out of memory or would it stream the results?
There is some mode where it'll do some streaming, but it's, I'm not sure for some of it, I wouldn't bet on it.
Okay, we'll just try.
There is some logic in there to try to do that, but when we enable it, we start running into other issues going on. And some of it's to do with the proxy going through the web server and stuff like that. So it's not necessarily the OData code. We're having to figure out where the different issues are happening with that. So
Okay, because it's a long chain of things that we need to stream.
well, yeah, well, it has it has to go through a couple hops, and then dealing with what's coming. If you want to stream it from FileMaker, because usually it depends on the type of request you do to FileMaker, whether you're getting the whole chunk in first. I mean, it may all be in memory anyway already once you made the request from FileMaker. So streaming from FileMaker, you'd have to change the type of loop. You don't want to like say, oh, I want all these records from this query in one chunk. You may want to change how you're accessing Draco. Say, oh, okay, give me the first 500 because I want to stream those out first. Because the Draco API doesn't really have a streaming API to it. You can't say, with all these records, just push them into this display or something like that. You actually have to have the loop yourself doing
The
it.
FileMaker client is fundamentally streaming, right? Like FileMaker client, you can have a million record found set and you can scroll through it, it's not going to run out of memory.
Right, but because it's downloading it in chunks and stuff like that. So,
But couldn't the same thing be done with OData?
well, I mean, if you're using top and skip and offset, you kind of have to do it yourself at this point if you want to do that type of chunking. Now, if you want to be able to say that you want top to be, 2 million or something like that, it's not going to break that all up. It's not going to try to do that yourself and stream the response back that way.
The problem with top and skip is that it assumes that nobody's adding or deleting records while you're iterating.
Well, adding would do the bottom.
Adding
Yeah,
would go to the bottom
well-
tree, so deleting would be the bigger issue.
Well, I mean, that's actually true in Pro also. I mean, people can be adding and deleting records as you're trying to display them, but they're coming and going, on the screen immediately at that point. So,
But like if you're on record 10,000, you say go to next record, and at the same time, just prior to then, somebody deletes record 1, you're still going to go to the next record, you're not going to skip 2 records.
So Jesse, look at
Yeah.
row IDs. Use row IDs when you figure things out that way. If they go away, your numbers aren't sliding up and down.
So, I mean, you could use top and skip and then just do addition,
Yeah.
basically create an overlap and check the row IDs in the overlap thing and make sure they still match.
yeah, I guess to do what you want, if we're doing the streaming in there, we'd have to download and get all the row IDs at that moment, and then save that off, and then start doing the fetching off of that set of IDs, because that's the only way to guarantee that since we're not we could just lock the entire database so no one else can change it. So we don't want to do that.
Thanks, Jesse.
On that note, we over at Harmonic ended up using OData to fetch something on the order of 80,000 records from a table. First, we tried the data API, which didn't work with anywhere near that many. And then we tried OData with JSON, but then iterating over the result was not going to work. So we
On
did.
the client side, it wouldn't work, or on the server side?
It was just timing out.
Oh, at time out of the server.
Yeah, so we ended up breaking it up into, I think the default is 10,000. Is that correct? I think it's 10. We ran into that. So then we just did the skip, did 8 fetches, and then dumped all that XML response into a field on the FileMaker side and did an import record step to get around some of the limitations of a really, really large data fetch. So that ended up being quite a bit faster than, even if we were going to get back that much XML, it still would have been painful to iterate over it.
Yeah,
So the import was
forget that.
the secret sauce for that.
Yeah, for streaming results and stuff like that, you have to realize that OData actually supports returning everything in an XML format too.
Timed out.
Yeah, but that timed out too. So it actually returns, I guess there's like an HTML type response too you can get from the data. It'll generate an HTML type page with the data, or you can ask for it in JSON, or you can ask for it in
It
XML.
seemed like the timeout was 6 minutes, but I don't know if that's official, but it seemed to always stop at around 6 minutes.
Yeah, I don't.
If it was gonna quit.
So, did you have your client set up not to have a timeout? The client that was making the OData request, did it have a fixed timeout, or was it set to infinite?
I don't remember setting one, like an header, you mean?
Yeah, because sometimes, different things like Postman or stuff like that, sometimes there's, or other tools
Yeah.
will have like hidden timeouts on the client side, and they'll just terminate it there.
I don't think we did that.
Okay.
Yeah,
But-
I think it may have been the Kong gateway that we were
The 6 minutes
that was functioning as a middleware that was timing out.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about when I was talking with Jesse, is that when you have this middle layer stuff you're going through, you have to make sure that everything works all the way through all the
Yeah.
different middle layers. And then when you introduce proxies, then things even get more complex at that point because what's going on. That's why there's sometimes problems if you're using the HTTP version of the FileMaker protocol to talk to things. Proxies can really screw that up because they don't expect, because how many of you out there are using the HTTP protocol to talk to the FileMaker server? Anyone? Oh, okay.
We played with it. I
You
think
play-
we might have one or two clients doing that, but not much.
Yeah, we had some specific customers that said that they had to run everything through an HTTP proxy and that they wouldn't let anything go through the GOP protocol.
Are you talking about tunneling?
Yeah, the tunneling stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, you're using that, yeah, no. Is that what we call it in the UI? I don't know. It's called the tunneling
It works
stuff.
great, it's fast.
By the way, there's a low-hanging fruit feature request from here sitting on the page for you to look at when you get back for that.
Oh, okay. But yeah, that's another one when you're running through proxies. Certain proxies will, especially if you're going through IIS, it doesn't like having really long-term WebSocket type requests going on. So they'll drop you off, and then FileMaker will go through and reconnect for you at that point. But you could have lost something in the middle there. So all this middleware stuff is always makes things more complex. I was more confident when it was just, the FileMaker Draco engine talking to another FileMaker Draco engine without anything in the middle. But nowadays you have to, you're traveling through all these things and NATs and all the interesting things that a NAT can do nowadays too. It's pretty amazing.
So Clay, I have a question for you. You're going to love this one. It's been a long while since we've done a file format change. What would cause us to do one? And as you told me before, there's file format changes and there are file format changes. I'm talking about then there's file format changes. That one. And do we still remember how to do them?
And what would be the advantage of doing that?
One of the, as we've been finding out these AI and the quantum computers and all that stuff, being able to break caches now, things that were unbreakable like 5 years ago and stuff like that. So we're getting some requests that we need to change out everything, the type of hashes we're using internally. That we need to cycle, use 124-bit things and cycle it like 500 times or something like that. When you go through and generate the hashes and stuff like that to make it, it'll be probably just good for another 10 years until that gets broken at that point. But so that's one of the things. And to change all the hashes that are used internally, we really would have to have a new file format. If we try to make it so it's somewhat backward compatible, and that just leaves other holes in it. If you really want to fix all the holes, you want to change that. And then if we change that too, so I guess the things that may force us to do the file format change. So there's that one. The other one is the getting up to the latest version of Unicode. So there's a lot more characters coming in. The version 4 or 5 of Unicode that we currently support works pretty well, and the new characters that are coming in, it doesn't really matter that much because there's a lot of Chinese graphemes and other country graphemes that are more like proper names and stuff like that. So there's no specific sorting rule. How do you what's the rule for sorting that? I mean, in Chinese, there's for the Chinese characters, there's a lot of sorting where you sort things by stroke counts that are in the graphemes. So the simpler characters all get sorted first, and the more complex get sorted later. So there's all these different sorting rules all over, and with all these new characters coming in, our sort weights and generators and that stuff don't know about all these different things. And then there's these new characters. I mean, so Unicode is really a 24-bit value for their numbers and stuff like that. So there's this place where you end up having two different code points to make the Unicode character code, which then it maps to a grapheme, which there's all this terminology going on. But they've added a new version where you see this with the new flag characters that are showing up in Unicode, where it's these new characters that have like annotations associated with the main character. So you have a flag character now, and then you say with them whether it's US or Germany and stuff like that. And FileMaker now all treats that as two separate characters at this point. So if you're using the arrow key to go back and forth, it will stop in like the middle of the flag. And when you double click on it, it may not necessarily select the entire character. So that's starting to get a little bit more important as some more and more characters getting added into that. And the main thing that causes is that we have to change all the sort tables that we're using and all the indexing tables. And once you change all the indexing tables, then the indexes we're going to be generating are going to be completely different than what were before. So when we did was it 11 to 12 or 10 to 11?
11 to 12.
11 to 12? Okay, yeah, when we did that file format, that was the last time we updated the Unicode. So it wasn't nearly as bad. So when you're talking about, that type of file format change or that type of file format change, I don't see we're going to ever have like a 6 to 7 style file format change that's that drastically different. But we're going to have something more like an 11 to 12 type file format change, where all the indexes are going to get dumped from all the files, and they're going to all have to be regenerated to handle all these new Unicode characters. Because we may have to insert some characters in between other characters. There was no holes that we could do that before. So we have the Unicode stuff, we have the encryption stuff. We have, for doing the encryption at rest, when that was added in, we kind of had to hack some stuff in there to get it so it would work. And if we had a file format change, we could make some changes to make that faster and work better. And go into like the file vault or the new techniques of where you actually never tell anyone what the encryption key is for the file. But what you have is then you let the user set an encryption key to be able to read the hidden encryption key internally. So that would allow you to change the EAR password without having to go through and redo the entire file. So that's how things like File Vault works on the Mac and stuff. And that's how a lot of different hard disks work. The real encryption code is something that is never made public. It's encrypted by yet another key, and it's that first key that you change to be able to generate. But then it'll be able to access the real encryption key. So then all the blocks, the gigabytes of blocks aren't going to actually change how it's actually encrypted. If you're really paranoid, I guess we would maybe have a flag saying, "Oh, I want to re-encrypt everything for some reason." Not just that one, but we've had requests, they want to be able to change the encryption password, or passcode, I guess is what we call it, without having to, redo the entire file. And then it'd be kind of easy to be able to turn off. Well, at that point, then we would probably just encrypt everything all the time, and then we would just leave the private key, made public basically in the header file. So converting between encrypted and non-encrypted would be, well, we probably have to go through all the blocks the first time we encrypt it, but if you wanted to decrypt it, if you wanted to take a file that was encrypted at rest and then open it up, we would just remove it and make that the automatically public key.
If you did that though, then there would be no way for anybody to be able to recover like right now you have like passware or something like that where you can clear the passwords on a FileMaker file. If it's encrypted at rest, you can't.
Right.
So then at that point,
yeah. So then those tools would never work again at that point, right? Yeah. So I guess you could put that in the whole security, the hash key improvement. So there's other, I mean, you know, the file format from 11 to 12 is actually getting pretty old at that point, and, you know, all these keys and, you know, certificates are all breaking down. I fired up my Mac from 2011, I think it was, and like I can't talk to any HTTPS website because all the certificates are all, you know, expired on that machine and stuff like that. But I can still run FileMaker 5.5 on it, so that's and I think if there's any other things. Well, we have a whole wiki page with a list of things. You know, if we were given the opportunity, like the other thing is like all the numbers in the file format are all stored in big Indian format. So we're doing a lot of swapping as we're reading in data. But that's when, you know, we were dealing with different processors that all, you know, some were supporting big Indian, some were supporting little Indian. And now everything is pretty much little Indian, all the ARM, the Intel. It seems like that's one as the file format, the disk or the binary representation of numbers. So if we take that out, I can take all the swapping code that's in the network protocol out. We can take all the swapping code that's going when we read things from and to disk. And I think we even have swapping code going onto the clipboard because when you could run applications that were both running like PowerPC and Intel on the same machine, you had to byte swap stuff that was going on the clipboard because you were going between two different processes that stored numbers in different order. So there's, you know, a lot of that old stuff. At that point, you're deleting stuff that's no longer needed anymore. That's you know, ending up problems, and that's when you write new products and stuff, like you don't run into these issues because you know you didn't have a code base going back to the late 90s that you have to support.
Question about installing FileMaker Server. You know, we all remember when you had to uninstall FileMaker Server before you can install a new version. That's gotten a lot smarter over the years, but there are still people who recommend always uninstalling before you install a new version. I'm wondering what your advice is on when you should actually uninstall before installing a new version.
Yeah, for 26, we made some changes. We added 2 new deployment types. If you guys played with installer on a clean install, I think the general advice still stays, but I would just emphasize if you're changing deployment types to really clean it all up. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Sort of. Thank you.
And usually like VREVs and stuff like that, it's usually not that much of a problem. But when a new major technology comes in, like standby server and stuff like that, and moving up would not be too much of a problem. But if you're ever going backwards, if you want to go from 26 back to 25, I would really recommend you clear everything out and clear that. But yeah, otherwise, yeah, what Derek said.
So this just personal curiosity, because when we were in the AI kitchen before, we requested for us to have the field annotation for like LLM that has been added, and at first we were told no because it would require a file format change, and then you did it. So I'm curious, did you have to stick it in somewhere else, or did you do it kind of file format change without changing the FMP12 or what?
So the low-level FileMaker file format is very flexible. You can, as long as you add new things, it's usually easy to add new things that are independent. And I don't know I guess whoever said that you couldn't do it. I mean, adding that isn't that much of a problem. So I mean, we're going to be adding like annotate. Well, we're having some arguments of whether it's just comments or annotation stuff, but we're going to be adding that for custom functions too, and for other, and like we just added it for base tables too. And now, we're getting requests that they want to be able to annotate the or comment for table occurrences. But our main problem right now is trying to say what to call these things, because I mean the thing is with the AI, you're feeding in all these things differently. Like some of them are like more DDL type, things that map closer to SQL. You want to give that to the stuff, but then when you're describing like a custom function, you may want to describe more of what it does and not more of a schema-oriented thing. So we're having problems with what to name these different things, and I'm trying to say, well, we'll keep comments as like what it was before. You can type whatever you want in there. It's not determined for that. But then there'll be this other field that is designed to be fed to some type of other and probably AI, but it's like maybe you're feeding it to a SQL database processor or something like that. But we may have like 2 different flavors of comments for everything at this point. And then the same thing. Then we're getting the same request to do that for scripts too.
Right,
So,
scripts and custom functions.
yeah,
both.
scripts
Yeah,
and custom
yeah.
functions, and then maybe
Right.
table occurrences.
Right.
But going back to, it's easy to add stuff like that in there. Now, if you want to change the behavior, that's where you get into the file format stuff, like changing the hashing that's being done, or the indexing stuff. We actually have to modify the old stuff. If you want to just add new things, like a new layout object isn't too hard to add, and you just have to, and you'll just get that blank box. We left in all these hooks for if there are new things that are existing in the catalog members, and it doesn't really affect anything else. Older versions will just ignore it because it doesn't know anything about it. Now, recover is not going to be able. If you run a recover on an older version of FileMaker to use any of these new features you're talking about, it may not know about it and may get dropped. So there are some things that it's not completely compatible, but as long as you're going forward, it isn't a problem.
So Rick, you heard that it goes on the easy list.
We have an open bug with Form Script on server doing PDF renderings on Linux servers where it doesn't utilize the custom loaded fonts that we've installed on the Linux server. We didn't hear any updates when FileMaker 26 was dropped, but I'm just curious, is that on your radar?
Have you been dealing with that stuff? Or, so that's I know some about it, but I know more than fonts are really primitive on Windows. I mean, on Linux systems.
Yep.
And a lot of the fonts that are in the Mac and Windows, the Microsoft and Apple has paid for those fonts to exist in those locations. So on Linux, you're getting all these free, public domain type fonts that are kind of close, so they don't really map up. So, and they don't have all the same mapping tables that the other 2 operating systems have. So we're hoping, I think we're using free type to do the font management. And we try to keep up with the latest version of free type, but some of that stuff is really, you need to get those open source developers working on that stuff to improve the font mapping and font choosing from there. So now we are going through and trying to tweak some things better because they're not using the same PostScript names between like what Mac and Windows uses. So if you have, we save off like the PostScript name, but then we find out that the open source fonts use a different name that doesn't match up to anything.
With Linux, though, you can install like a package that has fonts in it. I'm wondering, is it possible to have FileMaker recognize the fonts that are pre-installed already on the Linux server?
Well, that gets into, does free type recognize new fonts that are installed in the Linux type? So if it does it, then we should be picking it up automatically. If not, maybe that's why the ticket is open, because the team that's working on that stuff, none of us are working on that directly. I just hear what the problems are that they're running into. But I think they may be trying to figure out maybe adding some hard links into the file system and make it so that they appear where free type wants to look at them. But no, there are. I know that there's tickets open on that stuff, but I just don't know what the current state of resolution is on those things.
I got a quick little question for Clay and Rick. I'd love to hear what some of the quality of life improvements you guys feel like the community is really interested in.
I don't know, there's like 8,000 or something like that.
Or which ones do you guys think are most important for you to work on?
I've got 5 already for the persistent data store. 4 of them Clay's not.
4 of them Clay's not opposed to doing. One of them he's philosophically opposed to doing, but that's fine. Clay's the guy that determines what the low-hanging fruit is. But essentially we have a mechanism where if it smells like, so low-hanging fruit, here's our definition. a single developer in 1 or 2 sprints, which means 2 to 4 weeks, which means they could knock it out in a day, right? Some stuff can be knocked out really, really quick. And it doesn't require a product manager, which means it's straightforward enough where Clay can just give them guidance, and it doesn't require a product manager to make all of these calls, right? Between the two of us, we can do it based on our experience between the two of us. And we started with a list, and he's right. When I was running product management, I was sitting on, at that time, 26,000 feature requests. And I did analysis on them, and there were a few that stood out, Sync and Android. Everything else was an even schmear across the entire platform. So as a product manager, okay, I can do 10 things. Which of those 26,000 things should I do, right? So when we started after full access last year, because Dennis Burnham said something, when we started this process, we went back to the list we had and culled out 250. And then we had 250, it was just coincidental, 250 developers that then told us, if I could only have these, which would they be, right? And then we just divided it up and knocked them out, and now we just got this machine. So when you start hearing us sort of joking about low-hanging fruit, there's a ton of things that you guys want to be done in the product that really aren't that tough to do. The problem is if you go through the process of a product manager and a release cycle and deliberating on all the things they want to do, they never would rise to the top. So that's why now you have the ability to control Zoom that you've asked for 26 years, as long as I've been here, probably before that. You have, as a side effect of field annotations, friendly field names, right? Something you've been asking for the entire time. Sometimes AI needs stuff. And so we do it for AI and say, well, we might as well let you guys use it if AI needs it. And I think we got 20 of them in FileMaker 26. And we got a whole bunch more sitting in there, and I think we got even more in 26.1. And now we just have a well-oiled machine. And then I hear some of these server guys want to have their own low-hanging fruit. So I said, yes, cool.
But Rick, the new inspector was not on the list.
No, that came through the PM.
It didn't come through me.
No, I was just thinking, I was going to read off some of these titles of things that have been completed already that will definitely be in the next version. So there's one, so an option to put the blank rows at the top of the portal instead of the bottom. A checkbox format that doesn't have a label, that's a single checkbox. So you won't have to do all the tricks of, putting either like a blank or null. Yeah, so you want to do that. Set variable by name. Field indicators and browse mode indicating that there's more data in the field that is not visible currently.
Like ...
Well, it's going to be kind of more like, I guess we can see, there's instead of a plus character, I think there's going to be a dot at the bottom.
Yeah.
Well, we may change what the actual symbol is once it gets to ETS, but skip some. Oh, go to line number in the script workspace. There's some stuff like as you guys keep making larger and larger databases and larger, people adding real long layout names. But so the panel at the top they'll be variable size. So if you have 46 million records or billion records, the box will get big enough so the number isn't getting cut off. Or if you have 100 character layout name for some reason, you won't see any other buttons on your bar. You'll just see the name all over the place. Actually, it may cut off at a certain limit, but things I want, things that I know.
If we have issues with this, do we blame Dennis?
Yes.
Okay, so you know how you can rename fields and stuff like that for what's visible and stored and stuff like that. But if you use JSON null as the type, then it'll just hide it completely. So if you don't want to rename it, you just don't want that, in export or in sorting, if you don't want that field visible, you'll be able to use null to make it completely invisible.
So it won't export, it won't export the name.
No, it'll still export it, but it won't be in the UI list where the user can see it. So all this display name stuff is basically just what the user sees.
And also the value list, though, the key.
Yeah, well, I was skipping all the value because that's more complex. So many different features with that stuff. That's going to be like a session on itself later, so I can't get into that. But that's been a bunch of small things all kind of glued together into one big feature set. Get sort order as JSON, and then we're going to probably be able to sort by that JSON too.
Oh, yeah.
I know people are wanting an easier way to do sorts and stuff like that.
Save this one.
Options is suppressed. This actually cannot be performed because the field is not editable dialog. I guess a lot of people were complaining they don't want that dialog coming up. And they say, nah, just don't warn the user.
Huh?
Well,
On the insert?
yeah, well, if you have a field that's like a calculated field or something like that, and someone goes in and tries to start typing, you don't want to bother them bringing up that dialog box. And the same thing I think is if you start typing and there's no, and it's going to be tied to like, if you create a database and there's no records in it, and then you start typing or something like that, it won't display that warning there saying that there's no records. So, I mean, that's not going to be on by default, but there's some people that really don't want bothering the user. They say they know that. They don't want to have to go through and hit that.
That usually happens in list view.
Oh, in list view.
And there's no records, and you click in the layout part where there should be records.
Some requests to, actually, that isn't how it's implemented. We're getting rid of the animation for the inspector and object panels in layout mode.
Yeah.
I know, did anyone really enjoy having the animation of the inspector sliding out and sliding back in? After playing around with it, I was saying, yeah, it really slows it down if you're just trying to toggle back and forth between browse mode and layout mode. So we're getting rid of that completely. Command K will now be able to close the open quickly dialog. I guess I didn't realize that. I mean, I always use escape to get rid of dialog boxes, so I never ran into that problem. So, but there's other people that I guess this is what happens in the Finder or some other apps, where the key that brings up the open quickly window, if you hit it again while the window's open, it hides it. And they wanted that behavior. So I mean, all these things are like little bitty things and stuff like that don't take that much long. But once you start reading through a list like that, you're saying, wow, we're making a lot of changes on here. So
I have where are you reading that from?
Something you guys can't see.
Where on the list is the option not to sort of custom value list?
The value list stuff is a lot more complex, and I don't want to get into that this time. I'll have to wait till the ATS release comes out for that. There's actually another engine that would probably be better to describe that because it's a lot more flexible, probably more complex now. So it's
value list by calculation would be super nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, wait. Well, yeah. I can't tell you guys everything.
I remember I reported something a couple of years ago that, how when you're in find mode and after 10 requests you get prompted to remind you you're in find mode, but once you dismiss that dialog, it won't come up again unless you restart FileMaker Pro.
Yeah, because people didn't even want to, the request we got from most people was that they just wanted that at least come up once, and hopefully people would learn, but.
You met people?
So I guess we don't trigger script triggers while you're in find mode, so you couldn't do it yourself.
I like it.
Yeah, I don't, that may not make it on the list of things.
Yeah, I don't remember it, what the issue was, or whether I was suggesting one of those little check boxes that says, don't remind me again, or something like that.
Oh, yeah, yeah. But the user's going to just uncheck that anyway, always, so, it'll behave the same way that people use does now.
What about a reverse sort for a value list that gets its information from field names? So like you have a list of years that go from.
We'll talk about value lists later.
So no more value list questions.
What about like a checkbox that's to repress the insert from URL dialog that comes up, where it's like with the processing dialog, especially when you're doing AI stuff, it's just constantly coming up.
I think that's the one you just added, I think, to it's one of the ones that just got put in the bin to be prioritized, so it's not in the priority bins yet, it's in the triage bin right now,
Could
which,
possibly be prior.
yeah, which I think we have a meeting later this week or something.
Yeah,
I
so
forget the next
it
one.
goes in a list for Clay to say yes or no is low-hanging fruit based on the rubric I gave you.
And then, as they come in, that's where they go, and then we make the determination. If it's not low-hanging fruit, then we kick it over to product management. So it's not dead. It's just that it's going to take over a day or two to get in, right? Or 26 years.
Yeah.
My question is, I guess, more for the Derricks. I asked Derek Huang yesterday about this. How often does the engineering team, the development team, actually use FileMaker? Build in it, use it just for what you're doing?
Eating your own dog food.
Yes, eating your own dog food.
That's a good question. You want to go first?
Sure, I'll go first. I can give the same answer I gave to Corey, and as far as my own use of FileMaker, it's more of like using it in order to test features I'm working on, right? So it's very much in like a work context. It's like a very simple layout, like one field here, just testing a script step and whatnot. There was one application I was telling Corey where I was testing API calls, admin API calls, and I had a situation where I was using like a VS Code extension, like Postman, and then they said, you can't use Postman without an account. I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. So then I installed a VS Code extension, and then they also required an account. And then I went to Python scripts, and I was like, I don't really want to keep copying and pasting everything. So what I actually ended up doing was I actually made a FileMaker solution where I have a value list of the API endpoints I've used, and if it was a new one, it would add to a table and it would populate the value list. And push a button, test it, and I could repeat it like that. As far as personal things, I am not sure what policy is to use FileMaker outside of work. So I will be checking on that afterwards, and if I have permission, I will be making more apps. But until then, just kind of small things here and there in order to test features.
Sort of a similar answer. I don't want to copy your answer exactly.
Go ahead.
But what I will say is there's a lot of times where I go to Derek, because we were in the same section of our building, and I say, Derek, have you seen this on server or on pro? And one of the two options is either, yeah, I've seen that, or no, you're using it wrong. And if it's you're using it wrong, or the other side, we kind of talk about usability a lot. So especially with like the admin console, with Pro, maybe one day we'll get as experience, like even half as experience as you guys. But I mean, someone said 8 years, so we got a ways to go. But yeah, I presented at Gauge, he's presented in Melbourne, we've done a couple under the hoods. We like to simulate your guys' usage and the solutions you guys develop as much as possible. But yeah, I mean, we'll look at the license issue as well. But yeah, we try to emulate as much as possible.
What's Clay's answer?
Oh,
Yeah. Actually, if you're not distributing it or using it for any financial gain, I'm pretty sure you can use it for your internal use. Because, I mean, when I'm at home and I want to do some transformation on data, I just use it in FileMaker. I don't even use graphics programs to draw things. I go to layout mode, draw the object, and then save that. So it's kind of like, it's the hammer that I use for everything. I even, on my server running at home, I have these server-side scripts that are running to do pinging. I used to pay someone to do pinging checks on, other web servers that I'm watching and saying, Well, I can do that in FileMaker, so it goes through and generates a report, and I can get a nice graph of, uptime and downtime and stuff like that. So I have a bunch of these little databases doing random things like that. Now, I have this like larger agility dog show running type database that is kind of my test case with another acting like you guys. So I have this one person that I torture with, my changes and saying, here, let's change this, and does it work and stuff like that. So I sometimes get calls on the weekends and when the shows are running saying, hey, that broke or something like that. So she's my, just kind of not quite ETS, but I sometimes give her custom builds that do things just to see if that works better. So I kind of have my private real life tester on.
Wow.
So get an agile dog, and you can be one of his testers.
If you're running in agility AKC agility trials in California, the software is probably FileMaker running for it. The odd thing is that I was and she's done some shows elsewhere, and knowing how FileMaker prints and how layouts work, I can sometimes when I see a score sheet posted, saying, "Oh, that was generated by FileMaker."
All right, well, we are a little bit past 4. We started just a little bit late. I'll have one more question, and then we will close. Any other single individual question?
The admin API questions.
Okay.
You guys DIGFM, you guys have any questions?